Hey guys, Dov here, back with yet another spicy take of an overrated unit. I guess this is probably only the second overrated unit I've done, maybe. My brain is an actual potato, so I can't remember, but yeah, I feel like these are always the spiciest ones, man, the overrateds, and today we're talking about Skaven Jezzails, Warplock Jezzails. So on release, these guys were hilariously powerful. They've had some nerfs since then, and they're still good, don't get me wrong. But Skaven are in an interesting position right now against a lot of factions. It can be very hard to protect your weapons teams in general. And where the current meta's at is generally with mortars, right? The mortars, very cheap and does a consistent damage and doesn't need to be accurate, more importantly enough. Man, look at this guy's shield. I don't know if I ever noticed. Anyway, they don't need to be accurate to deal their damage, right? You just have to hit one globe near them to get that dot. And it does a significant amount of damage, and they will basically reliably pay for themselves. Jezzails, on the other hand, they need an open line of fire to shoot, which is, you know, one spot against them. The mortars don't need that. Their accuracy and missile damage are a little bit down from where it used to be. Still very solid armor-piercing long range. But considering that you have to invest a lot to potentially be able to protect them, it can be a problem. Now, in this matchup up against Vampire Coast, this is a matchup where you can pretty reliably protect them, as long as they're not getting blasted by artillery. And, you know, and then there's the whole argument that you should also be blasting them with artillery. But here, for just quickly touching on the builds, this is from a recent King of the Hill stream. I know not all of you watch those, so here we are. We've got Depth Guard, and this guy right here, Mourngul Haunter, can be an absolute menace for the Skaven. Heavy missile resistance, regenerates in melee. I have a battle from the last few months, I don't remember exactly when it was, that I had a very frustrating long late game. It's up on the channel, trying to kill two Haunters with a bunch of Skaven Slave Slingers. So rest assured, I'm a fan in that they're very good, but I'm also not a fan in that they're very frustrating to fight sometimes. Noctilus, also very frustrating to fight sometimes. He's very tanky. We've got some Bombers, some more Depth Guard, some Doggos out there. For the rest of the build, a couple of Rat Ogres protecting the flank here for F-Pod. He's the one playing Skaven. He's got some Jezzails. He's got a front line of Chaff here, some Clan Rats, and a couple of Plague Monks, which is an interesting choice against Coast. I like it quite a bit. And, in fact, I think that might have even been... Was it the underrated Plague Monks video where I showed the Mournguls getting kited? Anyway, but here, this video is secretly also about a very underrated lord, and it is secret because, of course, he is a master assassin and operates in the shadows. Yes, this is actually a way that you can make Jezzails a little bit better, specifically in this matchup against Mournguls, right? That missile resistance and regeneration is pretty important. Also the stock, so you can't really see them, right? So the Master Assassin offers a few things. He can pop concealment bombs and get close, and he's also got an ability here, the Looming Dread, that not a lot of people know about. It is a missile resistance and speed and melee defense debuff. So you stack all three of these together, and you can try and assassinate in melee or at range a target. And the speed control component is important as well, because the Master Assassin also has poison missiles. So with those two abilities together, you can go, what is that, like 60% speed buff, 70% speed debuff, somewhere in that range. Just absolutely ridiculous. Just basically not quite pin someone in place like Snitch can, but pretty close to it. And more importantly, you get the missile resistance debuff, which against a target like this is going to be very important. And now, this will sort of start to remind you of the Jezzails of old, for those of you guys who played back when Jezzails were what they were before. Even still, the Haunter, because of its weird hitbox and a kind of low profile, they're not going to make the greatest contact with, and this kind of showcases one of my main issues with Jezzails right now, which is that their accuracy is largely too low, especially towards the max end of their range. Natty Bubo's sharpshooters, obviously being much better as a Regiment of Renown, are going to get consistent hits, but check this out. I have never seen a Mourngul go down this fast. For those of you guys who go back and watch the live stream, or for those of you guys who were there live, or seen it, you'll know I was very surprised and honestly quite happy with this Mourngul getting absolutely wrecked here. Nothing against the player playing Vampire Coast, but I really don't like Mournguls. I don't like undead in general, and I don't like Mournguls, so there's that. And now it's going to be Noctilus's turn. Now, Rivalhide Talisman, the Master Assassin can take that as well. So you've got two uses, basically, between the regular Assassin and the Master, and Noctilus is running for his life. He is... his Weeping Blade, the Weeping Blade from the Master Assassin puts him down to 47 armor, and then the two assassins just gang up on him and start ganking him. And I remember the Vampire Coast player saying his mistake, when we were chatting after the game, was having these Depth Guard out of position, not being able to protect Noctilus with them, and I would definitely agree. You can see this one sweeping over now to try and get in and get Noctilus bailed out, but it's largely too late as he goes down there to the Assassin. Master has taken a little bit of damage here. One thing about him, he's very squishy. He doesn't have much HP at all, like less than 3,000 HP, I think, to start. Yeah. And it's potentially very dangerous, but against a faction that doesn't have Fireball, and doesn't have, you know, fast, mobile, hard-hitting units that can potentially get at you, it's pretty good to use them here, so I really like this specific synergy. Jezzails, though, have largely paid for themselves. Going to be a relatively quick one, as you can see the balance power swinging pretty heavily in the Skaven's favor. Depth Guard will get in and mop up a lot of units, but the Rat Ogres still being left. They can come in and deal some armor-piercing damage. These Mournguls been tied up on this flank for quite a while. The Rat Ogres is not a great engagement for either unit, honestly. The Rat Ogres will definitely lose this eventually, but they've been able to kind of tie these units down on the flank long enough, keep the Jezzails protected. You can see the Plague Monks also moving in there. So it's an interesting one, yeah. And I'm not saying, obviously, the Jezzails were very good and key to this replay, right? And there's a specific synergy here against this faction because they're easier to protect, and because the Master Assassin gives you specific synergy against certain types of units. And you might think this might work against somebody like Big Bird, which actually, or Morgur potentially even. I'll say this, maybe, but it is going to be harder to protect weapons teams against Chaos, and much harder to protect weapons teams against Beastmen. Beastmen have some of the best speed and disruption in the game, so oftentimes keeping weapons teams operational against them long enough for them to pay for themselves can be very tricky, but yeah, Legion here, well played. It's I like the Depth Guard rush, very aggressive. Obviously, just one unit kind of being caught out of position there. Even just one unit could have potentially made the difference. Both these assassin characters are pretty squishy, and even in that fight, they ended up taking a lot of damage. Something to be aware of, but yeah, Plague Monks holding the line decently, doing chaff stuff. 54 kills for Skaven Slave Spears. That's honestly kind of impressive. Yeah, 209, 105 for some of the Depth Guard. Fun stuff. I like this kind of minimalist ranged rush approach from Vampire Coast. And yeah, let's go ahead and just finish up talking about Jezzails here. I know a lot of you guys are still going to be reeing that I'm calling them overrated, but I honestly think it's true, and this is more so for newer players. Like, most veterans will know when to take Jezzails and when they're going to be too hard to protect, but just in general, when you're playing Skaven, if you're picking them up and learning them, or, you know, you want to start the game and take that up as your first faction, which is a very brave thing to do, just know that you don't want to go too heavy in your weapons teams. They can be very tough to protect against slower factions like Lizardmen or Coast. You can maybe get away with bringing like 3 or 4, but in most matchups you're only going to be able to bring 1 or 2 max if your opponent has a lot of mobility and disruption, you know, good counterfire tools and so on. And again, the meta largely revolves around mortars right now because you don't need the direct line of fire and you don't need the accuracy. You can also hit a lot more units at the same time, right? And it's Jezzails are obviously better for sniping characters and monsters, but Poison Wind mortars are just going to deal overall more raw damage across the battlefield. And, you know, incidental hits on characters and monsters aren't going to do that much damage, but what is it, like 800 damage? Something like that? Maybe it's not that high, I don't remember, but it's definitely something, right? And the fact that they don't need a direct line of fire to fire is nice. And one interesting thing as well that Falcon recently pointed out to me that I hadn't really realized, Poison Wind Mortars, because there's only 9 unit models, they actually have way more HP per model than other weapons teams, right? Like if you compare them, if you divide this 2,952, you divide that by 24, they're like a little over 100 HP each. All of a sudden, compare that to 9. Only 9 models splitting all of that HP. So Poison Wind Mortars have a lot more HP per model. And as a result, they can be a lot tankier in that way. So in general, that's why you don't see Jezzails as much anymore. The Natty Bubo Sharpshooter is definitely still pretty solid. With the Shield Breaker and the, I guess the regular ones have Shield Breaker too. But yeah, with the stock and everything, and the extra accuracy from being Regiment of Renown, they can put out some serious hurt, and they are still absolutely a force to be reckoned with. That's all for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.